Oh, it's here. That, my friends, is a new Arrma car. I'm gonna go grab it and head down to the workshop. All right, this is gonna be really exciting, and this is really heavy. How's it going, RC drivers? A couple days ago, I got an email from Arrma, and they said, we just shipped you something. Do us a favor, open it up on camera. So I listened, here we are. We're gonna check this thing out together, and I have no idea what it is. All I see is this Fireteam logo on the front, and I'm kind of guessing that maybe it's a nitro vehicle because Arrma doesn't have one, and you know, the whole fire nitro, maybe that's what it is. I did slit open the tape already. I wanted to peek in, but I didn't. So let's open this thing up together. What in the world? This is kind of wild. Check this thing out. It's a massive UTV, like a Polaris RZR. This thing is pretty cool. It's 6S powered, 7 scale. It's got the handbrake in here. That's really cool. Let me get this thing out of the box and we'll take a closer look at it. So I just spent a couple days looking at this beast. I looked up a bunch of part numbers. I gathered up some facts. I squished these tires an awful lot. And this is really one wild concept. This is something different than what we're used to seeing from Arrma. And I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. There's some really cool features on this buggy. Now, this is obviously a ready to run. It's 7 scale, it's 6S powered, and we need to talk about the body set on here. So first up, this is kind of like your Polaris RZR 4-seater. We don't have a lot of those around here, but they're really cool. I love watching videos on these things. And Arrma went and put a spin on this one. They gave it a special ops military type of concept to it. They nod to all those special forces out there that help protect us, and they wanted to make it into something fun, so they created this thing, which actually has the handbrake in there. It's got really soft suspension. It's got this big wheelbase to it, really soft tires with lots of traction. So I think it's just going to be a pure action machine, and I think that we're going to have a lot of fun with it. But let's take a closer look at the body now. Really aggressive front panel on here. Actually, lots of Lexan panels throughout. We got the roof plate up top, plate out back, inner panels by the rear, and then you got your full interior in there with your figures, and we've got lots of cage work that really helps give this thing a rigid stance, and it actually keys in at the front bumper, keys into pegs on the side, and keys into the rear bumper as well. I'll show you that in a little bit, but it's just 3 body clips to hold the body onto this thing, and of course they're tethered with the Arrma tethers, but really neat look. I like the paint scheme on here. This is the black and gray version, and they actually have a white and black version as well with these camouflage shapes to them, and we got decals throughout as well, like the step sides that are actually attached to the mud guards down below on the chassis. But watch this, it pops up and off really easily, and let me just flip it over really quickly so you can see the inner bracing. We've got like this full Arrma inner skeleton going on, a foam bumper up front to protect the front end when you endo this thing, because I'm sure you're gonna go wild with it. You can see the bracing here for the front mount, and these bars up front actually lock into the bumper. This plate here ties into the center section, and then we've got these brackets back here that tie into the rear bumper. So once this thing is on, it's a pretty rigid setup. Now we could take a look at this chassis. Look at this thing. This thing is absolutely huge. Now this is a Mojave chassis. Yep, that was part of the part numbers I was looking up before. So we've got a really long wheelbase to this thanks to the Mojave chassis. And then the suspension is really bulked up. But before I get into all that, let's get back to the chassis. We'll go over that first. So here are those lower mud guards that I was telling you about with the side steps. There are the pegs that tie into the body cage. And then your standard Arrma battery mount here. So we've got the sliding top, and you slide your batteries in. We got all the Velcro straps. Looks like plenty of chassis bracing throughout. So we've got the large front composite brace, the large rear composite brace, and then the aluminum center section. And you'll obviously have to pop this up and pop this plate off in order to access your center diff if you need to. But it's not too bad. It's just part of the maintenance routine, but nice chassis setup, very similar to what we've seen before. Servo mounted up front. We've got a tray over here for the speed controller. I'll go over all that in a little bit. And I really like the little guides for all the wires and everything. This is really nicely set up. I mean, even down to the wire guides for the wire running back to the handbrake servo. Check that thing out. I can't wait to use that. I haven't used one of those yet, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'll talk about that when I go over the drivetrain, but I want to talk about the suspension right now. So from what I gather, this is from the Creighton. The arms are the heavy duty arms. Check those things out. Lots of bracing on there, very little movement. And then of course we've got our pillow ball front end, long travel shocks. These are all aluminum shocks here, even with dust boots on them, even tall shock perches on the bottom to help prevent the spring or the perch from actually popping off and the spring just flopping around. Protectors on the top like we're used to seeing from Arrma. And then, oh, this is one thing I forgot to look up. I think that's a Creighton shock tower as well, but you know, nice thick stamped shock tower, black anodized, same in the rear. And let me just swing this thing around so you can check out the rear suspension on here. Again, heavy duty EXB arms on this thing. They just really look like they're going to take plenty of abuse. And we do have adjustable tie rods up in the rear as well, so you can go and adjust those if you ever want to. But in a basher, probably never going to do that. All right, let's move on to the bumpers now, actually, because I missed that before. Probably should have talked about that when we were talking about the body, but check out that front bumper. Really cool UTV look to it. Again, the body keys into it, and there's no bracing here. It's all done through the body. I'm hoping that it takes the impacts of bashing with this thing. In the rear, this definitely looks like it's gonna take some abuse. Check out the brace behind this rear bumper. Plenty of bracing there. I don't think that thing's gonna move at all, but really cool look to the bumper, kind of a skid looking bumper in the rear. Now let's move on to the steering. A little jumping around here, but I'm pretty excited about the way this thing looks. We've got our standard bell crank steering. We've got an EXB top plate, so a nice aluminum top plate up front. There is some adjustability through the suspension here, but it's set up to be just really plush. Check out all that travel on that thing. That's just insane. Same in the rear, plenty of travel. There you got sway bars to help keep this thing in check. And now I guess we could talk about the drivetrain. So let me spin this thing around again. I'm moving this thing a lot and it is pretty heavy. But we'll start off with the center differential. So we got the aluminum center diff in there, all steel gears throughout the entire drivetrain, 12-tooth pinion from the factory. It's the D-style pinion, and they actually give you a 15-tooth pinion gear as well. Steel center shafts, oil-filled differentials. And if I remember correctly, it's 10,000 in the front, 200 in the center, and 10,000 in the rear. And while I'm talking about oils, there was 1,000 CST oil in the shocks, just so you guys know. All right, again, obviously the front and rear differentials are oil filled. I like that they're all metal, and then they have the metal plates in there for the cross pins so they don't eat through the plastic cups, the composite plastic cups front and rear. So it's a pretty solid drivetrain, rubber seal ball bearings throughout. And then of course we got to talk about this handbrake. Check that out. So what this does is when you're ripping on this thing and you let off the throttle, you could hit your third channel on the radio system and lock up the rear brake so you can slide out the rear end on this thing, do some pretty cool tricks. I am really looking forward to that. Check out that steel brake disc in there, steel brake plates, and even some little springs that help push the plate out so it doesn't stick. All right, now 17mm hexes on the wheels, and we have these really gnarly military style wheels on all four corners. These things are pretty wild. Look at that. Look at the bolt patterns, the fake bolt pattern on here. And then these crazy airless military style tire from what I've read. Large lug on here, really tall sidewall. I'm interested to see how those are gonna work because those are some wild looking tires. All right, onto the electronics. So of course, Arrma teamed up with Spectrum since they're under the Horizon brand. We got some great electronics in here. We actually have the 6052 steering servo with an aluminum servo arm. This is a high torque servo, 265 inches of torque at 7.4 volts and steel gears. Here is your Spectrum Firma 150 amp speed controller with IC5 plugs on here. 2 plugs so you can run 2 batteries. This speed controller works really well. It is programmable. You can go and adjust your punch and your brake and everything. Even a cat pack on there. It is smart enabled. And then we have a 2050 kV motor in here for power. Look at the size of that thing. Big heatsink on there, even a cooling fan on the speed controller, and then a 6050 servo for the handbrake. Everything nicely wired. There's your on-off switch. And that's really all you need to know about this thing. Let's just show you the bottom of this really quick. You see the size of that chassis. We got some nice skid plates under there. Really cool looking buggy. Can't wait to go and rip on this thing. But before we do that, let me just show you really quick what else comes inside this massive box. We've got the Spectrum SLT3 radio system. That's a little odd. I thought there was going to be a DX3 in here, but I actually like the SLT protocol. And then of course we have your usual paperwork. We've got a breakdown of all the different parts in this sheet right here. This one will walk you through everything you need to know about the car, including how to break down the shocks and rebuild them, and the differentials. That's part of maintenance. Comes with a decal sheet, extra shock pistons, your basic tools, some differential shims, and here's that high-speed pinion gear. All right, guys, you know what time it is? It is time for us to go rip on the Fireteam buggy. This thing is gonna be a blast. Let's go have some fun. All right, guys, time to walk you through the drive with the Fireteam. And as you can see, I've already been beating this thing up. It is really dirty, but it has blown away my expectations. This thing is fast, it's fun, and it handles really well. Watch this, little air. I gotta show you guys the rip on this thing. Watch this. Yeah, look at those tires grow. This thing has been so much fun to drive. I think they built this car for this field here. It has been so much fun here. It handles everything I'm throwing at it. Now, what I've noticed is this thing has a ton of suspension travel, and those tires really help it out too. Through the mud over there, watch this. Oh, hard hit, we're still good. But yeah, the suspension travel on this thing is just killer. It is really soaking up this rough stuff here. I mean, it's just like 31 degrees. And this thing has been super tough, and those oils should be a bit stiffer, but it's still handling so good here. All right, let me show you a different spot. I gotta run it through the jumps over here. All right, this is a pretty cool spot here because I gotta run through the rough stuff and then go over the jump. Watch this. It's a washout section, just blasting through the dirt. Oh, that's cool. All right, watch this. This thing just floats over this jump. Yeah, whoa. Oh, ow, that hurt. That hurt a lot. Are we still good? Looks like it's still good. Thought I heard a little crack. All right, here we go. Once more, watch this thing. Around the berm, we gotta do the berm next. Yeah, whoa, full throttle, oh God. Wow. All right, we're still good. Now I wanna show you guys this jump. Now that I'm over here, I can see the car better. Can line up the jump better. All right, here we go. Ready, full throttle. Yeah. Oh, that thing's quick. All right, now I gotta show you this handbrake. This thing is so cool, watch this. Get on the throttle, just hit the brake, spin it around and go. That's so cool, love that. I'm gonna do it again so you guys can see it. Throttle, off the throttle, brake, spin it around, there we go. That's pretty cool, that's a cool feature. One more time. Yeah. I like that. That is pretty awesome. All right, we got to go do that berm now. Yeah. All right, it's time for some high-speed berm action. Look at that thing go. On it, on it. Yeah. Oh, through the mud. This thing is going to be covered when I'm done with it. Here we go. Yeah, it's shredding that there. Oh, man. I don't believe it. It's on all fours again. Look at this thing. Through the berm, oh, over the berm, into the woods. Do we land it? No, it's turtled. So normally I just pick it up and walk it out of here, but we got a tactical buggy. We're just gonna blast through here. Yeah, nice. I'm gonna stand over here. This might be better over here. Look at that thing, shred dirt. Just sick. Through the berm, yeah. So awesome. Just the right size. Look at the right power. All that suspension travel. Plenty of steering on this thing. Arrma nailed it on this one. It's something different for them as far as the look, but it has this killer Arrma handling. All right, guys, let's head back to the workshop and wrap up this review. So after the first few minutes of driving the Fireteam, everything started to click. You know, when I first saw this vehicle, I was really excited about its size, its power system, and then I started to look at the details and I'm like, we've got a crew in here with guns and a UTV. What's the connection? I just couldn't grasp it. This was something totally different for Arrma, and I think that's what threw me off. But once I was out there in that dirt field and started ripping on this thing, it all came together. It is the high intensity action that I think a special ops team would encounter when they're out in the field doing their thing. It's just a wild drive from the long travel suspension to the handbrake where you can just whip this thing around, the power, the size of the wheels, just kind of going wild in the air, and seeing this thing fly through the air is just incredible as well. This is a high intensity action vehicle. I guess that's the best way to describe it. And now I see the theme behind it. It all came together. This is so much fun, guys. I could not stop driving this thing. Once again, I was just hindered by the number of battery packs that I brought with me. It is that cool. So when I was out in that dirt lot, number one, this thing's just got a ton of rip on tap. You know, we've got the smaller pinion gear in there stock, and I thought that was good enough. I can't really see you doing speed runs with this thing. Maybe it would be fun to throw that larger 15 tooth pinion in there later, but this thing's got plenty of rip on tap, enough to grow the wheels and just launch you off of jumps. The acceleration in the dirt, just incredible, just roost flying off of these tires. Super, super cool. Steering on here is on point as well. I mean, you're going out there bashing, you're not doing lines around a racetrack or anything like that. So The steering servo seemed to work just fine for me. I was able to correct this thing in the air, rip it around some turns. You know, yes, there was here and there in that really loose dirt where I saw the steering just kind of stall out a bit, but overall, it seemed to work just fine right out of the box. And I mean, this is a proven setup in the front here on multiple Arrma vehicles, so you know it does steer well. The handling on this thing is just insane. This long travel suspension just soaks up all the ruts and bumps and stuff like that. I mean, I don't think I flipped it much when I was just running through the rough stuff. Where I flipped it was just going wild off of jumps, but super plush landings with it. And I think with the combination of the long travel shocks and then the big tires, it just makes everything feel so plush. And it's just really fun to drive and wheel this thing and go probably out of your comfort zone with it. I was out of my comfort zone. I usually have my spots where I go and I drive the cars in particular turns and jumps and stuff like that, but I was wheeling this thing through the grass, through the piles of rocks, and it was just taking everything and spitting it out. It was just so cool to see this thing tackle everything. And then over the berms, that's where I go and launch some of the vehicles because those are the biggest jumps there basically. So launching this thing off, it's wild to see this thing fly through the air. It's actually easy to control. It landed on all four wheels most of the time. I did land it on the roof a couple times. I did nose it down. Just a wild thing to watch. Now, I did bust up the body panels pretty bad. That is the only damage I have to report for you guys. I landed this thing on the roof a bunch of times. It did shatter the top panel here. It did rip a screw out of the front body panel here. And then in back, I did bend up the rear Lexan, but there's no other broken parts on this thing. And I was going through that rocky field. That field is brutal on cars. You guys know that. You know, I've got chunked arms from, you know, hitting the rocks. There's pieces of plastic missing out of it, but no cracked pins. We're still moving with this thing. It's really, really cool. That handbrake, I can't believe I didn't talk to you guys about the handbrake yet. I've never experienced that before. I didn't have the, what's it on, the felony? Correct me in the comments because I didn't have it. That is super cool, especially in dirt. You're just ripping on the throttle, you let off, you hit that handbrake, and that thing just spins around as you crank the wheels, and then you blast the throttle again, and it takes off. Super tight turn, dirt flying everywhere. Really awesome sight. Oh, the one other thing I do want to mention here is these tires. I think they're onto something with these tires because, again, they were just so plush. We've got this ribbing on the sidewall, and it was just an overall really good tire as far as keeping this thing in check, having tons of traction, helping absorb landings. You know, they did their homework on this thing, and they put out a product that is just going to be action-packed. This is really cool. I had a lot of fun with it. What do you think about the Fireteam? Let me know in the comment section below. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this. And while you're down there, hit that subscribe button and the notifications bell. Throw the video a like, and we'll see you back soon for some more RC Driver videos.